eligible survivors who were affected by September 11th attacks. The program also provides benefits for responders, eligible responders at World Trade Center disaster area, as well as Pentagon and Shanksville. There are quite a few World Trade Center related health conditions that are covered by no cost to the member. And within this program, there are quite a few services that are provided through the clinics that we work with. They're called the Clinical Centers for Excellence, CCEs. Some of you might be familiar with one of our CCEs, H&H, and they work with our survivors within the program. There are over 110,000 members that are receiving care for certified World Trade Center health-related conditions. Some of the care includes annual monitoring exams, mental and physical health treatment, and cancer screening, some benefits counselors, and there's more services that the clinics provide as well. And we'll scroll down just a little bit if you don't mind, please. Perfect, thank you. We're on the second page of this document. And basically, there's two really good questions to ask. One is, were you there? Meaning, did you live in the area? Were you working in the area? Did you go to school in the area? Were you attending adult daycare or child daycare? And when we say the area, we're talking about that New York City disaster area. And there's a small map there that's on this document, and you'll see Houston Street, and further south is included in the covered disaster area, as well as 1.5-mile radius from the World Trade Center health site, from the World Trade Center tower area. So that does scoop into a little bit of Brooklyn as well that will be covered. There is a more detailed map on the website if you wanted to see that again. So the second question is, are you sick? Are you also sick? And scrolling down just a little bit, if you don't mind, please, on that document. You may have some health symptoms that are related to 9/11, but you might not realize that it's related to 9/11. So things that could be included, maybe persistent coughs or wheezing, runny nose or stuffy noses, chronic heartburn or acid reflux, trouble sleeping, anxiety. There's quite a few symptoms that could potentially be connected to a health condition that we cover within this program. Some of the health conditions that we cover, and there's a long list, some of them include respiratory diseases like asthma and chronic cough. Some of them include digestive disorders, mental health conditions, quite a few cancers, and there's a few places we can show you later that talks more about covered conditions within our program. I want to highlight on this page that there is a number that is on this page that it's very important, 888-982-4748. With that number, you'll be able to ask a lot of the very detailed questions or specific questions that you may have about filling out the application and or health symptoms that you may have, and or are you even eligible based on where you were in your area, if it's in that disaster area. This is a good place to ask those specific questions by picking up the phone and calling that call center at 888-982-4748. So that's this document. I wanted to show you this, and there's another document I wanted to share with you all as well. And once again, I appreciate whoever's driving. Thank you for doing this. So this document is the World Trade Center Health Program Member Handbook. It gets updated usually once a year. Sometimes it's a little bit more than a year. And we put a lot of information that's in there, not just for members, but for applicants as well. So for anyone that's interested in the program, this is a public-facing document that you can check out and learn a little bit more about our program. And I won't go through the entire document, but there's really good information in here if you're wondering what's in that initial health exam, the initial health evaluation that happens. it also goes into more details about health conditions that you may have. So I guess if you don't mind, whoever's driving, I can give you some page numbers so we can just look at that. Page 21, if that's not too much of a burden to click onto that page. Perfect, thank you. So this is where we talk a little bit about the initial health evaluation and what you would be able to expect on those. So services may include whatever the program, the World Trade Center Health Program doctor thinks is appropriate for your condition, such as an exposure assessment, medical history. There might be a separate mental health questionnaire. There could be a physical examination that includes things like a pulmonary function test and or blood test and or vital signs. So there's quite a few different things that could happen in that initial health evaluation based on the symptoms that you're presenting. So if you do feel like you are sick, and that is the perfect time to talk to the World Trade Center Health Program once you're already enrolled, and share that information of what you're experiencing. A lot of the health conditions that are in the program could potentially been exacerbated by your World Trade Center, by your 9/11 exposure. For example, you may have already had asthma, for example, prior to being exposed to 9/11 contaminants, and it got exacerbated by those contaminants. So that's something that we would cover in our program. Not all health conditions within the program are things that could have been pre-existing, but some of them are. So it's a good time for you in that initial health evaluation to go through all of the things that you're experiencing, not just your medical history, but symptoms that you have at that time. Let's see. Also in this handbook, there's a lot of great information about what the program does, and we won't go into all of the pages on here. It's within here, but what the program does with research, for example. I think there's a little bit of information in here. And what I wanted to touch on with research is that within our program, there's a lot of World Trade Center health doctors, specialists, not just doctors, but case managers and other health professionals that are very accustomed with working with people that have been exposed to 9/11 contaminants and those hazardous conditions. Those specialists, they use the research to care model that we have within our program. So what that means is that treatments are informed by research, and the experience of not just the doctors, but the other clinical staff within our program have an understanding of what treatments are applicable for these conditions based on this specific population, responders and survivors that have been exposed. So there's more information about research within our website, and I'll show you that website in just a moment. But I did want to touch on that and just bring that up. Also, this program doesn't replace the care that you're getting from your doctors that you have now. So this is actually a good opportunity. If you like, you can choose to have your World Trade Center Health Program doctors work with your existing doctors, the doctors you already have, sharing the evaluation results, sharing recommendations, so it can be more of a comprehensive care model instead of just working in silos with your doctors. So I did want to bring that up. I do want to show you the website and about applying, because I think that's important. So for my friend that's driving, once again, thank you. If you don't mind clicking on that link to the World Trade Center Health Program website, I'll show you a few more things on the website, and then I'll pause for questions and see if there's anything else that people want covered while I'm here.
Do you remember the link off the top of your head? Look at the email. It didn't preload that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think, were you talking to me? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
The website. I see.
Oh yeah, and if you can't get to it, it's fine. I can talk it. Oh, okay. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
So while Lucy's pulling that up, Rhonda has expressed that she's going to take questions. at the end of her presentation. I just want to remind everyone to make their questions as broad and, impersonal to your specific health problem as possible. If you.
Oh, how can I check when I'm still registered?
Okay, you're good to go.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, I think I did hear a question. Did I hear a question already?
Registered with the DCF or registered with the health program?
Either one.
Well, for the
How
World
can I
Trade Center,
check that I'm still registered?
sure. So for the World Trade Center Health Program, the best thing to do would be to call that 888-928-4748 number.
Say it again.
Sure, I'll repeat that. So it's 988, I'm sorry. It's 888-928-4748.
That's the health registry.
This is the World Trade Center Health Program.
Thank you.
Sure. And let me make sure I said that right. I'm sorry. I think I just transposed some numbers. Let me just say it one more time. 888-982. Sorry, I think I gave you the wrong number. 4748. There it is. Oh, perfect. Thank you. So it just popped up on the screen. Once again, whoever's driving, you're amazing. I appreciate that. 888-982-4748.
And for the victims' compensation, you can register.
We're gonna get to that in a moment.
Sorry.
Another
Okay.
presenter.
Oh, yeah, that's okay. Yeah, Stephanie will go into more about the Victims' Compensation Fund, definitely.
Absolutely.
I have my hand raised and I'm in the chat area, I'm not in person.
Hello.
Is it okay if I speak now? Is it my
Do
turn?
you have a question you want to ask now before she finishes the presentation?
I want to
Sure.
ask about the health program. I could wait till later, but that's what I
Sure,
want.
just 1 second. I'll just show one more thing and then I'll open it up for more
Perfect.
questions. So I just want to show this website, which has the bulk of the information that we have about our program. Everything that's public facing is right here. For those of you who are considering applying, you can click on apply. It says apply to be a member down below. So there's a couple places on this front page that shows you how to apply. Oh, there we go. Perfect. And then when you click on that, it'll show you a little bit more about the application process. It'll first start off with telling you about the eligible groups. Then it'll go into supporting documentation. And then it'll go into the application and what you would need and how to apply. I wanted to make sure that we showed this page so you know that all the steps that you need to take are right here on this one application page. And as you click on the next pages, you'll find out more about documentation. A lot of people are wondering what happens when we're almost 20 years away from the day of the event. So how do I get that documentation that the program will accept? Well, if you look at the review documentation needs, you'll see some of that information that's available for you. And under survivor documentation, it'll go into much more detail about examples of what could potentially be used. There are so many different types of supporting documentation that the program will consider with your application. So I know it's a long way away from September 11, 2001, but the program does consider that time factor and looks at a lot of those different options when they're considering documentation to see if you're eligible for our program. If you have questions about it, about your documentation or about you can't find it, what if I don't have any? There are other steps to take. The big step would be, once again, calling that number, 888-9. Oh, wait, let me get it right this time.
982.
982. Thank you. Oh my goodness. I was afraid I was going to transpose it again. There it is. Oh, perfect. Thank you. Call this number, 888-982-4748, because they will be able to walk you through what documentation you may have. And if you don't have any, they'll talk to you about different options that are available. So I I stress that number because they're there to help you. That call center is there to help direct any questions you have about eligibility, any questions about the documentation, about the application process. And if you are already a member, they can look you up to see where your clinic is and provide more information to you. So there's a lot of things that can happen through that phone number. That's also the great place if you have a complex issue, they will be able to redirect you to the exact person that can answer that question if they can't right there on that phone. So we do have specialists for complex situations and complex items. So I'm just going to check my notes and see if there's anything else that I wanted to say before I opened it up to questions. One thing that's helpful for some people is to get their supporting documentation together, even if they're not sick. Just having that documentation ready. And if, once again, call that number if you are wondering what documentation would be something that the program could consider. If you get yourself ready, then if you do get sick, you'll already have this in place with the documentation, and then you can apply and have all that together. So I hope that's helpful. I'm going to open it up to questions, and I believe it was Justine. You already had a question ready to go?
Thank you so much,
Joey,
Rhonda, and thank you. Sorry that I jumped the gun a
Oh
little
my
bit.
gosh, no worries, no worries.
But no, thank you. So I guess my question is going to be focused on the post-traumatic stress syndrome or any kind of mental health services that are available. They exist, I know. So
Yeah.
I'm well familiar with all your programs, and you know, it is a very helpful. The World Trade Center Health Program is very helpful, and a plug for it is I think it's great for the research factor too. People
Yes.
need to know what happened. I mean, you know, what happens to the human body after exposure to all this stuff. So I think that's something that I volunteered for way early on with my kids. But the
Awesome.
mental health part of it, I will say that is a bit where the program is lacking. Sorry. It's fair enough that it's hard. I'm certified for PTSD, so it's not. I'm not fighting about that. What I am concerned with is being able to get services through the mental World Trade Center Health Program, because as someone, let me just finish. As someone who's employed, I have health insurance, but where all health insurance that's private tends to kind of fall apart is when it comes to mental health. So looking to having the World Trade Center Health Program be a real partner in getting help would be great. And it's just not there. I mean, you guys are too busy. You've got not enough people to do the, you know, you have, I think the wait is like over 6 months now to try to get to get on a list of being able to talk to somebody. And that's frustrating. And that's even to try to get someone out of network, but that you'll pay for, that'll agree to it, and all of it. Anyhow, that's my point, is I would like you to focus on that going forward and do better, because you've done a great job with some of the other stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. Justine, thank you. I appreciate it. I will take it back to our medical benefits staff that's here and let them know that that's been a concern. So thank you.
That may be something that Hannah can help with also, or take back to her office, because one of the problems was like the parameters around the hours within which they're able to provide the care and things like that were pretty stringent the last time the health program from Bellevue was here in person, and we talked about this. So maybe that's something that the federal government can help with.
Yeah, I will say that we are very aware of the difficulty in getting mental health services and getting reimbursed for them. So it's something that we are actively talking about and thinking about. So thank you for flagging that for us.
You know, thank you. I appreciate everything that Congressman Adler does. So thank you for being on top of this, and I have confidence that he will help make this happen. So thank you.
We have a question from Mark also.
Is this, I was a first responder, this also, program is also for first responders, right?
That is correct. Thank you for your question, Mark. So I focused on just survivors when I was speaking with our presentation, because I thought the audience was just survivors. So my apologies. Yes, it is definitely for responders as well. When you go into the application process, thank you, whoever's driving, where it says responder documentation, that would be what you would click on and look at that. and continue on with application process for there. So,
I sent the documentation in, all I had was, a photographs and, a news article.
well, I think calling the number would be the best bet because they will be able to talk to you about some of the things that you have. Because maybe there's more things that you have available to you that, there it is, right there, the number, that would be applicable that will help you get into the program. So, yeah,
A couple of people from the first precinct down there that knew me, but they said that the city wouldn't allow them to even write a letter saying that they saw people, so, you know.
yes,
Perfect.
yes. And please share that. Thank you all for attending. I appreciate your time and I appreciate you spreading the word. And we are definitely working on making this program more beneficial and more all encompassing for all of our health conditions. So thank you very much, everyone.
Can I ask a quick question before you leave? I'm sorry, my hand
Oh,
was.
sure. Sure. Hello.
Hi, thank you very much for coming. Very much appreciate it. Do you have any statistics that you can share with us that are not obviously based on people's personal health, but general statistics about how many people who lived here, who have become sick or who have passed that have been registered? And one of the important conversations we've been having in Lower Manhattan is how it's different. It's not, you know, it's a different lens that we look through on the community board. There's those who were responders, and then there's those who lived here and who helped rebuild 24/7, and those who worked here. So I'm just looking to get some data points for the board, if you had any that you could share.
Thanks for that question. I'm going to put, let's see, in the chat box, I'm putting a link. And you may have seen this already, so I don't know if I'm sharing some statistics that you already know about. This is some of our public-facing statistics that kind of group everything together. We also have research folks and we have data centers that are collecting a lot of information. So if there's something specific that's
I'm
not,
specifically looking for clusters in Lower Manhattan.
gotcha.
That's what we're looking for. It's a wider discussion that, you know, we had started having about as we approach the 20th anniversary. There are many of us on our community board who have been around this long. Our own board chair passed away last year from 9/11 related cancer. So, you know, it's one of those things that I think is knowledge is power, and we would like to have some knowledge.
Thank you for that. I think that maybe our research teams could probably help you out. So I think maybe, let me give you an email address in the chat box and you can email to me directly and I will see if I can find the response for that to send it out. Does that help?
You can send it directly to Lucian and the.
Okay, let me do that. Okay.
I'm
Okay.
really down with that. But I
Okay.
mean, I think Hannah knows
Sure.
where we're going on this. There's been lots of topics of, you know, how we honor people. But I think the biggest thing that I see missing as we approach 20 years is the dialogue of the people who lived and worked down here. And that's in general not spoken about. It is always about our incredible essential workers and our incredible first responders who did just yeoman's work that day. But there's a long-term silent killer from 9/11 that has affected more people in the community than I would have liked to have seen and recognized. And that needs to come forward in the dialogue as well.
Yeah,
I
well,
understand.
well said, Tammy, because it's, if you look, even if we took a poll of our community board members as to who has lived in the catchment area and who has had cancer and survived or passed
Mhm.
since 9/11, it's a significant number of people.
Correct. And that's one of the things that I was hoping that Rhonda could help us with some research and to have a dialogue with Hannah about. It's not one of those positive, fun conversations, but it's one that's it's about time to be had. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. And I definitely can get some numbers to you. I want to see if it's exactly what you're looking for. So I'll send them over to Lucian. And if you need more information, I can dig it down and talk to our research folks and find out. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that as well. I appreciate it.
So Rhonda, you know you're stay, but should Rhonda have to leave, I failed to mention earlier that we also have Kimberly Flynn of 9/11 Environmental Action with us, and she can help you with a lot of the questions and with applying. If anybody feels that they need additional support in actually completing the application, that's one of the services that she provides.
Thank you. Yes,
So-
jumping off. So I
Okay.
appreciate it. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a fantastic evening. Thank you.
Okay, talk to you soon. So next up, again, we are welcomed by the Deputy Special Master of the Victims' Compensation Fund, Stephanie Langston.
Hello, everyone. It's good to see some familiar faces and names, and we are always happy to have the opportunity to talk with you. I'm going to wait for my slide. There we go. Excellent. Okay, so, you know, I was listening to Rhonda, and of course, we often will do these types of meetings with the health program and the VCF. And there really are some similar themes here around we have a helpline. You can see the number here, 855-885-1555, and they are your resource. Any questions you might have, whether it be about the status of a claim or whether you're eligible or what documents you need, similar to the health program, our helpline is also there to help you. And of course, our website is also a great resource. So I was asked to focus tonight on really two things: registration and this July 29th, 2021 deadline that is out there, that a lot of individuals in the media, I know there's been a lot of outreach from the various law firms. So I'm going to talk about that. And then I'll also talk a little bit about presence and documents to prove presence. And so if we go to the next slide, I'm going to start the registration topic by I'm sure many of you have seen this slide before, just a reminder of the 3 steps in our process. So the first step is to register, or what we call registration. It is basically name, address, social security number, date of birth. It preserves your right to file a claim in the future. It does not commit you to doing so, and it does not waive any legal rights. And, you know, similar to some of the things that Rhonda was saying, we also asked the question, were you there? And if you were there, go ahead and register. You don't need to be sick to register. We're not going to look at it unless you come back and file a claim, but it preserves your right, and it takes away the concern of whether or not you met your registration deadline. So the first step is to register. And the deadline to register is based on your individual circumstances, which I'll get to in just a minute. It is not the same for everyone. It's based on you and your particular situation. The second step in our process is to get certified by the health program for a physical condition. And again, if you're not sick and you register, our hope is that you never get to that second step, but at least your registration will be in with us. So second step is to get that certification and then come back and file your claim. And the deadline to file a claim is the same for everyone. October 1st, 2090, which is the date that we are required to take in our last claims. So let's talk about registration and this July 29th deadline that is causing a lot of confusion. If you could go to the next slide, please. All right, so here's the bottom line. When we were made permanent in July 29th of 2019, there was an opportunity presented to basically grandfather in anyone who had missed their specific registration deadline. So it presented the opportunity for this 2-year window, which ends in exactly 2 weeks, for people who had missed their deadline to register and have it be considered timely. The only people who must meet this deadline are individuals who are planning to file a personal injury claim, and their only certified condition was dated on or before July 29th, 2019. So if you have a certification for a physical condition from the health program, and the date of certification was July 29th, 2019 or earlier, this deadline applies to you. For individuals who are filing a claim on behalf of a deceased individual, if the individual died on or before July 29th, 2019, this deadline applies. These are the only individuals, these are the only circumstances for people who need to worry about this particular deadline. And when we look at our data, we are feeling fairly good that most people have gotten this message, because if the 2 years is triggered based on the date of certification for personal injury claims, when we look at the health program certification numbers against our registration numbers, we have almost double the number of registrations. So again, it only applies if your only certified condition was certified on or before July 29th, 2019, or if an individual is believed to have passed away of their 9/11 illness and the date of death was on or before July 29th, 2019. And that is it. It's an opportunity to grandfather in. So that leads, I'm sure, to the next question about what happens after July 29th, 2021. And if you could go to the next slide. This question of, can I register with the VCF after that date? And the answer is yes, 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 and yes. So as I mentioned at the start, the registration deadline is not the same for everyone. It varies. For personal injury claims, the bottom line is that you need to register within 2 years of that certification date. And if you have more than one certification, you just need to register within 2 years of the most recent one. So let's say you were certified for asthma in 2015 and you don't register, you never registered. And you don't register by July 29th, 2021. And so you missed that grandfather period. But then let's say in August of 2021, you are certified for another condition. Your 2-year clock starts over again. And for those of you who, for individuals who are not yet sick, your 2-year clock hasn't even started. And again, there's no harm in registering. So if you were there, register. Just go ahead and register. If you do nothing else, you can log on to our website tonight and do it. You can call our helpline tomorrow morning and do it. Go ahead and register. Now, after July 29th, 2021, and this grandfather period ends, for claims filed for those who have passed away of their 9/11 conditions, there's a couple of things to keep in mind here. If the individual had previously registered a personal injury claim, and that registration was within the 2 years or grandfathered in, the deceased claim is automatically timely whenever it is that the representative comes forth and starts that claim. If there wasn't a prior personal injury registration or claim, then it is 2 years from the later of these two dates, either the date of death or the date that we confirm the condition is related to 9/11 through our private physician process. Now, let me explain what that means. For individuals who were never certified by the health program and who end up passing away from a 9/11 condition, they can still come to the VCF, and there is a process we go through where they provide certain information and forms and medical records, And then we work with the health program to verify that condition is eligible. And so the 2-year clock would actually start on that date. So if you or someone you know is filing a claim on behalf of someone who has passed away, it's 2 years either from that date of death or once they're in with the VCF, 2 years from that verification. And again, it's you got to meet the registration deadline one time per person. So if it was met years ago and the claim is just coming in now, no worries. If it was a personal injury registration and the individual has now passed away, still timely. And it really just, the message we want to get out is if you were there, just go ahead and register. As I said, we're not even going to look at it until the claim is filed. It just preserves your right. So are there any questions on registration and the deadlines before I switch to presence?
Anybody on this?
No hands in the, or the,
Yes.
When if you're just about to register, do you have to provide proof at that time or upload documents related to whether you lived or worked in the area?
That's a great question. And the answer is no, with a but that I'm going to get to in a minute. So no, registration truly is name, address, telephone number, social security number or other, national ID or passport number, and date of birth. That is truly all it is. And you can do it online on our website, or you can do it with our helpline.
Current address or address at 9/11?
Great question. Current address. The address where we would send you something if we needed to reach you. And actually what we're going to send you is a letter confirming your registration. So you are not required to prove anything. You don't need to be sick. You don't have to prove you were there. You may never come back and file a claim, but it preserves your right to do so in the future. And it gets rid of that worry, right? We hope that individuals who aren't sick do not become sick. But if that should happen, the last thing you should be worried about is whether you've met your registration deadline with the VCF. And so we want to make sure that these benefits are available to you. And if you register now, you won't have to worry about that piece of it down the road. Yes, I see another hand raised. I think it was Justine.
Oh, okay, I wasn't sure if you're talking to the chat or the room. Thank you. Can't quite see the room, but thank you. So 2 questions are, one is how many types of cancer can you claim? Or I mean, like what is that work? If you've got multiple cancers, can you claim it? If you're certified for multiple cancers, and what if you've gotten an award? Can you file it for award again or other conditions? That's question 1. Go ahead.
Okay, let me take that before okay. So when you file a claim, we go out to the health program and we get information about all of your certified conditions. And every one of your certified physical conditions is one that we will consider when we are calculating your award. So if you are certified for, 3 aerodigestive disorders and 2 cancers, we're going to get information on all of those, and we're going to consider that as a factor when we review your claim. To your second question, if you received money already, you filed a claim and you received compensation, let's say for a non-cancer condition, and then unfortunately you're certified for a cancer condition, we have a very open amendment policy. You can amend your claim at any time until October of 2090 to claim a new condition, to claim a new loss. Perhaps it's the same condition, but it's now become disabling. You can come back and seek additional compensation. Or perhaps it's become more severe.
Right.
You can come back and amend your claim. And if we find that it is appropriate to increase your award, then we will do so and we'll issue a payment for the difference.
Interesting, okay. But is there a cap on the award is what if you have 2 cancers or 3 cancers that are hitting 2 years apart, for example?
So this is a great question, and it can be a little confusing. The first statement I'll make is there's absolutely no cap to the overall award that you can receive. But there is a cap to one of the components of the award. And that is the pain and suffering award, which is also called non-economic loss. So by statute, that is capped at $90,000 for non-cancers and $250,000 for cancers, but they can go as high as $340,000. So basically the 250 plus the 90 in cases where there are multiple cancers or perhaps cancers with a severe non-cancer condition. But that's just one part of the award. And so that part of it is capped, but your overall award is not capped. And everyone who is eligible, if you meet our basic eligibility requirements, you are eligible for that non-economic loss award.
Second question, thank you. That's good to know and that makes sense. Second question is with expenses. So I have read your website, whatever, and I know that medical expenses, so economic loss, you have to prove at least $5,000 of out-of-pocket medical expenses. Makes sense. With the health program, if you pay those bills outside, if you pay them directly and don't wait for the health program to pay them or whatever else would be covered, you're out of luck. They're not paying you back. What's the deal with the Victims' Compensation Fund if you say, okay, I've had this cancer, I've spent $30,000 in a year for the cancers, I expect to have more expenses just because you monitor it forever or whatever else. What's the deal with that?
So let me phrase it. So once you are certified by the health program for the condition, then you have the opportunity to have the health program provide and pay for the treatment. And so the VCF is not going to compensate medical expenses once you have the option for the health program to provide the treatment and provide the care.
And what if they don't? Because you've chosen a different doctor or you've paid out of pocket already because you don't want to be, in collections.
So if you paid out of pocket prior to the date of certification, and it is related to your certified condition, you can file a claim with us for those medical expenses. And as you noted, we do have a general rule that it needs to be $5,000 or greater. But we also recognize there are some individuals who an amount less than that is still very important. And so you certainly can come and ask for an exception to that. But our mandate, as we've explained, is that once you're going into the health program to provide that care to you and cover those expenses, that is not in our mandate to reimburse for that.
So can I ask a clarifying question?
Please.
I thought with cancer, the program didn't treat cancer. So it's understood that people were going to places like Sloan or whatever was appropriate. Is that
Sorry,
incorrect?
I had a hard time hearing the first part of that.
Yeah, me too, Mariama. Speak slowly and loudly.
I was under the impression that specific to cancer, the health program didn't necessarily provide all of the treatment one might need. And they basically just served as like a conduit between you and your doctor. And for that reason, whatever cancer-related treatment you got elsewhere, at somewhere like Sloan Kettering or something, was therefore covered after you paid for it out of pocket.
Is that incorrect?
After you're certified.
So I wish Rhonda were still on because I'm not going to profess to be completely versed on the nuances of the health program and how they do or don't cover those, that care. We can certainly take that back. Again, for us to compensate the medical expenses, it was intended to be compensation for money that was paid out of pocket before the opportunity was there for the health program to cover it. And Sally is on and she is taking notes. So we will definitely follow up to understand if there's a gap there that we're not aware of. So I'm glad you raised the question. It is not one that I have heard before, but I know there have been some questions about medical expenses in general.
So
Okay.
Stephanie,
And
if I
certainly
may,
anyone that received cancer treatment before the cancer in general or their specific cancer was a covered cancer is eligible to be compensated for having received their treatment elsewhere, right?
Yes, if they paid out-of-pocket medical expenses for that certified condition prior to certification, they absolutely can submit a claim for medical expenses reimbursement.
I will tell you, Stephanie, that there is a gap because yeah, there is a gap. Expenses outside of insurance do run really high. And I appreciate that the cap for cancer is $250,000 of non-economic loss, but the expenses can eat that up really quickly. And that's with insurance. So I understand what the law may say. I think it may be something we need to work on in this committee is what I would suggest.
I
Thank you.
have a clarifying question on
Yeah,
this
because
topic too.
I wanted to jump in on that. My husband died 10 years ago of pancreatic cancer and it wasn't recognized at the time. And of course, we spent a lot of money. I mean, he was a senior, so we had some help because of, Medicare. But I just want to make that clear that there are cancers that weren't recognized at the time. So therefore, there wasn't any medical there were no physicians available to us to go to for treatment.
So I don't want to get into individual scenarios, but I will say this, and always happy to follow up separately. But first of all, I'm sorry for the loss. If the cancer was related to 9/11, and if you have not yet filed a claim for him, first of all, register before July 29th, 2021. And then you can come in and have that condition, because it was never certified, have it verified through the private physician process. It will require some forms and some medical records. But if it is found to be eligible and the cause of death is found to be the eligible condition, then not only will you be eligible for the non-economic loss, and depending on your circumstances, some economic loss, you could also be eligible for reimbursement for the medical expenses, again, depending on the specific circumstances.
So when you say come in, to where would one come in if we're in New York?
Meaning come into the VCF, right? So you can register if you have not already in his name. Obviously, you'll need to have the documents that prove that you are the legal representative who's allowed to represent the estate. And depending on what you claim, and again, I don't know the unique circumstances, whether your husband was determined to be disabled before he passed away or whether he lost time at work, but you can call our helpline. They'll walk you through the process. But if the condition is found to be tied to his exposure, then this benefit is here for you, even if it was 10 years ago.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
Certainly. The one other thing I want to mention, going back to the question about the multiple conditions, I do want to just mention that the non-economic loss, this pain and suffering award, it is based on severity and the impact of the conditions on your activities of daily living. So it is entirely possible that you might have 6 certified conditions that are, well controlled through medication. You're going about your regular activities. You're thankfully not experiencing any impacts. And so the non-economic loss award, even though you have 6 conditions, would be on the lower side, as opposed to someone who might have 1 condition that is, so severe that it requires oxygen on a regular basis, hospital admissions on a regular basis, the inability to climb stairs or, take care of their activities of daily living. Even though it's 1 condition, that would end up on the higher end. So some nuances there.
Yeah, we have a question from the attendee section. Jessica Billish, I'm unmuting you. Please ask your question.
Oh, this is Jessica Billix. I was just, I don't have a question. I was actually going to help Stephanie answer a question.
Hi, Jeff.
I was trying to, hi, I didn't know if you knew I was on.
did
Rhonda has
not.
left, but I'm still here.
I did not.
So yeah, I was going to help answer some of the questions regarding access to Mount Sinai, not Mount Sinai, Memorial Sloan Kettering and cancer. So
Yeah.
program will cover cancer for certified cancer. The program will cover medically necessary care if the doctor is in network. And we do have a lot of Memorial Sloan Kettering doctors in network. So the CCE should refer, if it's not ongoing care, should refer to a doctor at Sloan Kettering that's already in network. We could also work to try to get them in network if they are not already in network.
What's
I know
CCE?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
What's CCE?
The Clinical Center of Excellence. So if you're a survivor, H&H. If you're a responder, it could be a number of the other ones, Mount Sinai, Rutgers, NYU, etc. Yes, so the CCE, your Clinical Center, H&H, if that's your CCE, would refer you to a participating doctor at Sloan Kettering. If your doctor, if you're already in ongoing treatment, is not part of the network, they could be enrolled, but we have to do that before we can cover care for them. I know there's also some of the clinical, the cancer clinics cover a lot of experimental treatments. The program does not cover those. Those are not covered by other federal agencies, so the program does not cover those sorts of services, but it does cover, FDA approved services, devices, etc., that other federal payers cover at a covered position, including at the big cancer centers.
Question, what if
Sure.
what if you're too freaked out to even know what I'm asking what a CCE or CCC is, and you're just so worried about taking care of yourself that you don't go through all these hoops to make sure someone is certified or not, but you're at Memorial Sloan Kettering and you haven't done anything beforehand. I mean, you submit the stuff, but it's almost crazy to expect that someone's going to diagnose with cancer and then not say, okay, what's the next step? How do I live? And not go forward and then spend time thinking about, well, let me think about what doctor I'm going to use. I don't know. I'm a little frustrated with that.
I understand. Unfortunately, these are the limitations that the Zadroga Act requires from us. We do not have access, the ability to pay back anybody who's had out-of-pocket expenses either before or after certification. We do not have legal authority to pay a doctor or a patient who is enrolled after care. There are just limitations to what the federal statute provides. And I understand there's a lot of hoops to get through, but hopefully a clinical center, if somebody's already enrolled and assigned to a clinical center, has the ability to provide, they should have the case management to provide access and help coordination of appointments. And if they don't, I'm more than happy to call the call center and get escalated. We get a lot of inquiries through congressional offices. I've actually, I believe, spoken to Hannah before. So if you've got any concerns, I'm happy to, I'll be the one that gets all the congressional inquiries. So those will get escalated to me. So if anybody does have questions about billing, problems getting appointments, and they've tried accessing the case management through H&H or a different clinical center, then they can escalate it either directly to the program in the call center, and still, if they're feeling frustrated, go to their congressional office. I get those directly, and I work directly with all the different parts of the program.
Okay, I guess for both of you. So if you have expenses from prior to the program and or a covered condition that is now covered and certified. It's also been my understanding that you have to exhaust all of the personal injury process of the VCF before and non-economic loss before you can file a claim for this economic loss, which can be problematic if you incurred the costs back in 2002, 2003, and we're almost 20 years later, and how do you maintain these receipts and other evidence to prove whenever you're finally eligible to do so?
So I think part of that question is about the when you can submit a claim for medical expenses. And our policy is that you can submit a claim for medical expenses after you've received your initial award and submit it as an amendment. The reason for that, quite honestly, is that the medical expense claims take an enormous amount of time for us to process. And we didn't want to hold up the claims, the larger part of the award, in order to review the medical expenses. So if you have a situation where you want to ask for an exception there, you certainly can do so. But in general, we'd rather get you the bulk of your award, that non-economic loss award, and perhaps any other economic loss that you may have, and then come back and evaluate the medical expenses claim. Now, to the question about the receipts, this is a tough one because what we have to balance is sufficient proof that it was paid for the eligible, as a result of the eligible condition, that it was paid out of pocket and not reimbursed by insurance. And we've got to know confidence in the amount. And those things, those are important because we are a government program. We are focused on only paying legitimate claims. And so 20 years later, with those types of receipts, I get it. I get it. I mean, that is hard. Don't know if perhaps the insurance company might be able to help with some older explanations of benefits. Perhaps there might be some credit card files, credit card statements that are available. I'm not trying to make it sound like that's easy because it's not. I truly don't know how I would come up with proof of medical expenses 20 years ago, but there's got to be some type of documentation to support the claim. And we certainly try to make things as easy as possible. We want to do what we can to help, but that one is just really tough because at the end of the day, there's got to be something that shows us that amount and that it's somehow connected to the condition and was paid out of pocket.
Do you need like the canceled checks?
So canceled checks can be one way, explanations of benefits, receipts for prescriptions or copays. There's a couple of different ways, and we have information on our website that's all about how to file a medical expense reimbursement claim, and it walks through what kind of documentation we need. But it is a challenge. It can be a challenge. So the same challenge, I'm going to turn over to the next slide because that same 20-year challenge is something that we're facing with presence. And Jess, by the way, thank you for chiming in on that because you saved Sally from having to follow up with that question. So again, we know how difficult it is after 20 years to try and find documents of any type, and that includes documents to prove presence. One of the first things I'll say is whatever list we have on our website, or even the list that I'm going to show you in a minute of documents that might help, you're not tied to that list. Think about anything you might have from that time that meets what we are trying to see, which is the specific address where you were, the specific dates or timeframes you were there, and then why you were there. That's what we are trying to get to in order to prove presence. Now, the question came up earlier about whether you have to submit any documents when you register, and the answer is no. Registration does not require any documents. But once you've registered, you have the opportunity to upload documents to store them. And so, similar to Rhonda's message about if you were there, start gathering these documents now, we have the same message. If you were there, even if you're not sick, start gathering these documents now. And if you register, you can store them in our system. And then should the time come that you file a claim, they'll already be there. And oftentimes the documents that you gather for purposes of proving presence with us are also sufficient to prove to the health program that you were there. And so if you haven't started to think about this and you were in the area at the time, really encourage you to start gathering these documents. So again, if you were there, start gathering them. Of course, register first, and then you can always upload them to store them in our system. So if we go to the next slide, we've got some specific examples of documents that can be used to prove presence. And it's similar to Rhonda. I had prepared this mainly for the non-responder community. On our website, we do have a list of documents for responders, those who were involved in the rescue, recovery, the cleanup, the debris removal. And so if you do have questions about that and what type of documents you need, you can call our helpline or go to our website, and we're happy to help. For those who were in school at the time or daycare, the best proof of presence is a transcript or a report card or some other type of enrollment document from that school or daycare organization. It needs to have the time frame on it. It needs to be very clear, for example, in the transcript that the student was actually there, or the report card that the student actually, took classes there. And if it is certified, if it has a letter with it certifying it from either the school, or if you're working with an attorney from your attorney, that is the only proof we need in those cases. So for the students at the time in particular, that school transcript, that one piece of presence is all we need, as long as it's certified or accompanied by a letter stating that it is accurate. For residents, people who were there because they lived there, we need two things. We need to know the address, the residence, but we also need something that shows that you were physically there at the time. Because as I'm sure you know, it's possible that you could be the leaseholder, but perhaps you were subletting for that period of time. And so we're trying again to connect that you were there physically and the address. We will accept all sorts of documents, and we look at everything in your claim when we're evaluating presence. So if you have anything from that time that you think might help, go ahead and submit it with your claim and we'll evaluate it. And it very well may help to piece together the puzzle that we need to see in order to say that we can confirm that you were there. And if we go to the next slide, there is a list of documents that are some of the common ones that we get to prove presence. So the left side has a list of what we call our reliable proof. These are documents that in general will meet the need. And so if you have 2 of these, there's a good chance that we'll have what we need to have you prove presence. Tax forms, if there are dependent children listed and the dependent child is filing a claim, now an adult, but filing a claim, your tax form with that individual listed as a dependent at that address could be sufficient proof of presence. W-2s from the time, some of the FEMA documents, if you had FEMA assistance or other government records, benefit forms for other, government benefits, whether it be federal or state or local. Salary declarations for public housing, those are quite reliable because we know that they do not allow the apartment to be sublet. Bank statements from the time, custody agreements. If there's a custody agreement and it shows the residential address, that's a great proof of presence. Another proof of presence could be this letter that the New York City Department of Education sent out in late 2019 or early 2020. They sent it to all of the addresses for students at the time. One of those letters being mailed to your home address could certainly show that your child was living there at that time. School transcripts that have a home address or school report cards that have a home address are helpful. And then a letter from the leasing office. So if you have your lease and you also have a letter from a leasing office, or even just the letter saying, I am a representative of the leasing organization, I can attest that this individual leased this residence at the time and was physically there at the time, and here's how I know that. So those are all examples of documents that are quite reliable, assuming that they come in with the details that we want. The list on the right are documents that could be helpful in supporting presence, but sometimes depends on the details that they contain. So leases or rental agreements by themselves, as I mentioned, they are very helpful, but we still need the piece that confirms that you were actually living there. Rent or mortgage receipts are helpful, utility bills from the time. Some people have sent in driver's licenses from that time, which could be helpful. Medical records. So if you were, going to the doctor at that time and you have medical records from the physician that show and indicate where you were living, those can be helpful. And then if you are relying on a friend or a neighbor or a coworker or someone else at the time, who knew you were there, you can ask them to fill out our witness presence statement. And if they follow the instructions and they fill it out completely and they attest that all the information is true and correct, that can also be another great form of presence. So I encourage you to visit our website. We are working on improving the presence information to make it easier to understand. We also have been doing quite a bit of work behind the scenes to try and form more relationships with organizations that can help support claims by giving us information directly. And so the list is always changing. And I would encourage you again to check our website, call our helpline if you have questions about specific documents. You can call and say, I have this type of a document and it has this type of information. Do you think that would be sufficient? We can't say for sure until we see it, but our helpline has a really great sense of what it is we need and the type of information the documents need to contain. Are there any questions on presence?
So you said that we don't have to submit stop presence until we were to file a claim, but if we did now, would you evaluate it now and say whether it's good enough?
So we won't, although you can certainly again call our helpline and talk to them about what's in the document. The helpline, if you uploaded it to your registration, would be able to take a look at it, but they won't be able to render a decision and evaluate it because we look at it in the context of the entire claim. And we have a group that has been trained specifically to look at presence documents and determine, based on your claim form responses and everything else. But
with all due respect, it could be many decades before a claim were filed. And if someone was filling this out, they'd like to know, have they proven presence, especially because people don't have tax returns from 20 years ago. You couldn't even get it if you contacted the government and you didn't have a lease document. And you had what you thought was some proof, correspondence, things like that, the kind of things you mentioned, like doctor's bills, you'd want to know, did I meet the burden? So it seems like you should be able to give that answer.
so again, I would encourage you to call the helpline and talk to them about the document. Our challenge, quite honestly, becomes resources, right? So we want to get claims out. We want to get through them as quickly as we can, and we want to get money out to people who have filed claims. We want to pay people. And we're constantly striking that balance between working as quickly as we can and trying to be as efficient as we can to get the claim reviewed and approved and paid versus resources that are looking at documents where there isn't a claim yet that's been filed. We certainly have had this question before, and absolutely we'll go back and think about whether there are ways to put sample documents on our website. Examples of this is what a good one looks like. This is what one looks like that is not as good. But I would really encourage you to call our helpline and have the document in front of you and explain to them what it contains. And they will be able to have a sense of whether that document will be sufficient. Because you're right, it may be that we don't pick up the claim for many years. That's one of the reasons why, if you do have someone complete the witness presence statement, really want to be sure that you complete it in full. And same with, I know Justine, you have a question. I just want to say one other thing. If you worked in the area, so part of perhaps you lived there and worked there, you can get an employment, if you can get something showing employment from your employer, or have them fill out one of the, what we call our third-party verification form, which is a document that an employer can fill out and answer some questions about where you were working and when you were there. Those can also be helpful and something to think about. Justine?
Thank you so much, Stephanie. And Michael, thank you, because you raised a really good point. Something that I suggest, Stephanie, is that, and maybe it will make your load a lot easier, if people are already certified by the health program, why do they have to prove anything about presence? They could not be certified for the health program if they don't get presence. That would be like, take that off the list and focus on the people who were not, because there are a large number of people who haven't gone through the health program yet. But that would be a real easy, check. I mean, because I can tell you, again, with sharing information with the crowd who's listening, documentation that I've shared, videos of people on the day. I didn't do a witness statement because I felt like an email that I sent to my family telling them where I was, I put that in. I had, Matthew and I got married just before 9/11. So I had my wedding, all the bills from my wedding that I had kept because I've got them in a file. I kept them and submitted that. So that was before. And then after, my daughter was born on 2 weeks later, showing again. So I submitted her birth certificate. I mean, things that are they're not on your list, but they're things that you might keep, and that goes to prove it. But I also would suggest that make your life easy. Accept the certification from, they've gone through, trust me, I have gone to year after year. They go through hell to prove that you were actually there before they certify you for anything, before they'll even see you.
Yeah. So It's a great question and one that we've had come up several times in the past. There's a couple of reasons why that doesn't work. So although there's a lot of overlap with the health program, there are some distinct differences. And when it comes to presence, one of them. So first is the actual area. We are looking for south of Canal Street, river to river, and we cover the debris removal routes, the barges, etc. The health program covers up to Houston and into Brooklyn. So you may have been in Brooklyn and they certified you, but that doesn't prove it for us. The second difference is the time frame. So we are looking for presence between September 11th, 2001 and May 30th, 2002. The health program goes to July 31st of 2002 for exposure. So it's possible they be certified because in that later time frame, but that wouldn't qualify for our presence. And it is the documents we will take are very similar, but we're also looking for slightly different things. So we actually don't care how long you were there. We just want to see that at some point between September 11th and May 30th, you were there. The health program, of course, is looking for exposure and documented, time frames and whatnot. So it's being certified in the health program. You could be certified and not eligible for the VCF and vice versa.
One would think being certified would then give you a leg up if you then can prove the narrower circumstances with lesser documentation. One would think that should be good enough.
And I will say that the examples, right, the birth certificates, the wedding invoices and whatnot, those are all documents that I would put in that category of if you have something that shows the address that indicates the time frame, submit it. And again, many of the documents do work for those programs, but our criteria is a little bit different.
If there are no further questions, we will thank the conversation for the next Jessica, and video here, and Sally, all for being here.
We are always happy to answer questions. And the final slide, and I think you're welcome to share this, obviously, has our website and our contact information. Please make sure that you are at the vcf.gov website. There are some websites out there that are trying to look like our website. They are not the official website. I encourage everyone and to spread the word. If you haven't registered, go ahead and register. Get that done and call us so we can help you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
All right. I hope everybody has a good rest of the evening. Thank you so much for inviting us.
Me too. Thank you so much for coming.
Bye.
Oh, we're all in person. Look at this. Are you nervous? Oh, yeah, yes. So, Willie, hi. No. Hi.
Pat, I'm so sorry. With the mask on, we can't understand you. So sorry.
I don't know if you see that. So those are the many meetings that virtually that I have a tablet and what are you doing? Hey there. How long have you been on the board, Debbie? I'm sorry. I hope they don't have another day of writing. Oh, good, I'm not. Yeah. You know this? Like a 15. Okay, job and you don't have to do the question. I just wanna, put that in, when you talking to, if you're figuring out something, talking to us, you help with, microphones and take that down to them. And then we'll suggest if you have one microphone to be trying to, so, because there are a couple people online, you can already tell what you. Look at the replay. Whether they're bored, they bored. Maybe I'll go see that thing that we have. A good one is I forget how to so, now we have a thing, thank. We can speak like this. Oh, you mean like a Jesus back, yeah. You know, yeah, they like the news up in group, and then you take it. Yeah, I guess I came on because these things, I really, I'm so good evening. My name's Jack. I don't. Out of
Just for the record, for the people who are on the chat, who are calling in like I am, Richie knows it's unintelligible.
I'm working on this.
Now it's like there's a lot of static.
Exactly. We cannot hear anything. And it's not, I thought it was just me, so I was texting people, but it's not just me. It's pretty much everybody who's on the call. All we heard, so basically from the minute that Stephanie stopped talking, it was garbled static noise. So Listen, I will say that I am a cooking master. speak in the middle of when the World Trade Center folks were speaking, it was fine. But now it's just like horrifying. It's like,
Yeah, it sounds like somebody's running a cappuccino maker.
yes, exactly, or a blender or something.
And then even when that blender noise is not going, the voices are so muffled you can't hear.
Less sawing sound, but now just sounds like garbled voices, right?
He's working on it. So let's talk, let's talk about that one.
Pat, that was good. I heard you say he's working on it.
You know, you got noise when I'm laughing. That was the other question. We love that, but I was talking about your professional life.
So weird.
What's the Bluetooth?
I hear Pat fine. Lucian, you're muffled.
I don't hear Pat fine.
Okay, there you go.
I can't.
Whoever that was.
Well, actually, with Mr. Joseph has a lot of life years ago from about, you know, it's about Kimberly, and sounds about his, no, it's about class, no. I'm not sure I'm getting someone who can oh, stop it. And hold on, so online on TikTok, hi, Bob.
Hi, I could hear that, those two words.
Bob, who are you and what do you do? How long have you been on the board?
Every second.
Every second. You've been on the board every second.
I think you said, how long have you been on the board, not on the call?
Oh. Well, that tells you. Maybe 8 years now.
That's you?
Me, I think since 2016, maybe. I gotta look at my letter.
I think that that's it for community memory, Don. So then we're gonna go.
Just mess the audio really quick. I'm gonna mess with the audio really quick.
That's.
Hey, Justine, does this sound better at all?
A little bit better, yeah. I could hear that. How about I'm looking at the people up in the chat. Who else? Who's there?
Yeah, that was a little bit better.
Is the status still on?
The staticky sound is gone.
Okay. So
I mean, you're still muffled.
Can you still hear? So which one is most electrical? Good. Pauline, you're driving a blind.
Well, we could not hear that exchange.
Yeah, we could not hear that at all.
You couldn't hear that?
No.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask that you, everybody, remote, use their microphone and something that you get to find out.
I don't really, you can talk to be organized, speak directly from that phone. And, I don't know if
Pauline, can you hear me?
I could hear that. Someone said, can you?
Are you hearing, is it just because you're not in the room? I'm without you there.
When you guys speak, maybe you need to speak slowly like this. That's ridiculous. But if you talk, if more than one person is speaking, forget it.
Okay, let's get it.
And if you do anything besides enunciate, we can't hear you.
Okay, Justin, we're gonna have to move on though, because it's getting late. So we have an incident that happened in our community, unfortunately, and Julie is very concerned for her.
Well, Friday I am having a meeting in for Bob. So we're going, we have coffee and breakfast and 5 drinks and sitting for Bob. And sometimes I went to work and something. But thanks to thanks to Captain Smith and many for facing and then but you know, because I work, I learn I still with that. Actually, you know, just the next issue with the homeless. And I just thought that today, given what happened to me, this is always something. But I think a hospital that is a mainstream good place there that we can provide not only for the victims, but also the homeless. Especially with the pandemic, I really, I just the person I think should research. That's what I got plans. No, nothing happening. Oh yeah, well, through the homeless individual. I mean, really, later on, I think thank you. And I'll follow them to years. When I think when I got to the mention, they were another have to solve it before me. But you know, I mean, this is my frustration got started in the okay, we just got that this morning shift ended. You know, and then I'm just so no, what happens when people get hurt. So I noticed. And then you guys talking and all you're doing is thinking about helping people that maybe even talking to others. But I mean, honestly, the funny thing is I did a situational assessment, that's fine. But then I thought this is very so unusual. I mean, I didn't really work with them. Well, I never had to like that. Did you feel that because on just how like the guy was maybe or whether it was and no one's going to just you can do anybody as opposed to also targeting because of your background or it was really had nothing to do with that. I'm just curious how you feel. I feel, I mean, I don't feel like, you know what I'm saying? I don't feel anything, but I know, but all through my life, since I came to this country, it's still like, mama. So I don't, but the truth is, yeah, but I can it could have been. And these issues, I have super, like, people always say, like, yeah, the other thing, I'm not saying, a lot of people, I think we've going down there for 10 years now, having that unity. There's it's like this, it's like that I never think of. What did you do? Hold on a second. So I'm in social worker there in Knoxville, and it was very at that where I was currently. Like amazing, whoever is like we are, program. That's kind of why. This is the I don't care about someone because it's you. Fine, mine is completely, we're fine. Before, if I wanted to go back to here. Yes. But don't give me, we're going to, die one. 408. 418. And we. What is this all? One 7 315 0638. What's your ID number? 3399.
All right.
You did it wrong.
All right, how's it sound?
Okay, that was better,
What was
Lucian.
All right.
Wait, we're using the. Pauline, how does it sound?
Much better.
Okay, so yes,
Much
it sounds
better.
much better now.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So Jimmy, and Zach, so the person that assaulted you though, Jimmy, was in the emergency room when you got there, right? Oh, no.
No.
Okay.
No, that's what happened. No, once I got assaulted, right, and then I followed him, and then I called 911, and then I followed him, I gave them information, I'm behind him, etc., and then I witnessed he assaulted Tina, nanny that was have a stroller. She just ran, she's crying, she continued to run away, and then eventually we were able to apprehend the individual, and then I went to the emergency room, and at the emergency room there was another individual, and that I showed him the picture of the person, and that's the guy. But then I contacted First Precinct again and said, look, you need to come down here and take a report.
Right.
Anyway, but I understand. I really don't want to focus this on the crime issue. It's really quality of life, right?
Right.
I mean, everybody wants to walk down the street, in broad daylight, doesn't have somebody slap you in the face.
But it is twofold.
Yeah, but I'm kind of glad that it's what remind me what I need to do. Why I joined the board in the first place is that during the pandemic, we see the community change, like at least from the hospital, people were coming in, and there's a lot of issues that I think we need to address on a long-term basis, not just short-term. Oh yeah, we have a parade, it's done.
Right.
Mental health, homeless population, how we can help them, because I really think that emergency room is it's a really good location for point of intervention, but the intervention and resources need to be there. And it's not there. I didn't feel it was there. I mean, maybe that.
No, I agree with you. I don't think it's there, and I don't know what where to pin any sort of responsibility for something like that. But I watch it. I've got that front row view of both sides, right? And again, I work exclusively with folks who come in as after any kind of violence, after something like what happened to Jimmy, to what happened to the guy who came in just before Jimmy, domestic violence, violence of a sexual nature, elder abuse, all that kind of stuff. But I do see the work that is done with folks who come in with mental health challenges, folks who come in and they don't have a stable and long-term place to live, or even a short-term place to live. I see it. I also know that people are very strict, they're stretched thin, and the emergency room is a quick paced world, and people are space is at a premium, and so there's emphasis on getting people in and getting them out as soon as their bare minimum needs have been met. And so I agree with you. I don't think it's an easy situation. I think it's especially complicated setup. But one thing I can say for sure, without daring to go into solutions, is that things do. I've been there for a year, and things have elevated. Right, there's a lot more people coming in. It's at least 2 or 3 people coming in after things like what happened to you.
You mean the homeless people?
No, just people. Oftentimes it's on the trains, as a big uptick in the trains, but then around here, people, coming out of the train station, people walking like you did, unprovoked, whether or not there's particular components like racial aspects to it. It really spans the spectrum. Oftentimes it is seemingly as random as community. So it's hard. I'm interested in this conversation too.
And this is a conversation we can, continue to have. We're not going to obviously solve it tonight. One thing I'm interested in is from the police point of view, though. So this person was deemed mentally ill, or did they?
Well, I didn't stay around that long to figure it out, but I did tell the officer before I left the scene that he needs help.
Right.
I mean, even though we're right nearby Goldman Sachs, he's not going there to work, right?
Right.
He's homeless. I can tell this person. And in my personal experience, working in the emergency room, most of the time they have mental issues.
Yeah.
If they have whether chicken or the egg, who knows?
Right.
But and I wouldn't be surprised that in gentlemen that assaulted me, I probably end up running into them again on a cold night.
Yeah.
So
well, one of the issues that we need to, kind of get, and normally we would have a police officer here who comes every month or every other month to kind of have a discussion with the community about what's going on. One of the things is I would love to know if this gentleman does have mental health issues, what the police instructions are. What do they do? Do they just put him in jail? That doesn't help them. So, and it doesn't help us ultimately because he gets let out and he has not gotten any help.
well, it's not uncommon that police will bring individuals that have been arrested to the hospital, to the emergency room.
To our hospital.
Yes. But like I said, usually if they have some kind of acute issue, right, they also got hurt or something like that. But I really did not notice a strong mental health care component. Not just here, I also go to Brooklyn. I think they're closing down a cycle there, I think, in Methodist. I'm not sure. I saw some posters out, but.
I see you, Mitch.
You remember
Out corner of my eye.
that from people of a certain age, and I say that respectfully, in the 70s, during the years when Mayor Koch was mayor, I forget the lady's name, but they changed the law where you can't take a person against their will. Do you remember that situation? I forget, there was a specific incident that happened where before that.
Eleanor Bumpers.
No, it was before that. You're right, but that was something different where she was
killed.
But this was somebody who was living on the street and something was doing, like she was a harm to herself and to others. And prior to that, they could force you to help, not to, to put in jail, but to force you into services. And then she had a good lawyer, so I guess she wasn't like totally off, but the lawyers used her.
Yes, these lawyers used her as a test.
And that changed the law, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm not sure kind of where we are now, but somebody like that who's a danger to others and a danger to themselves, not to be taken to prison because that's just that's a waste. And then once they leave the emergency room, there has to be something that's maybe somewhere in the middle where there has to be some type of forced treatment to help.
Let me just ask.
But not, maybe with the criminal justice system. Otherwise, I don't see anything changing.
Hold on a minute. Pauline, do you know anything about this?
No bell.
I know.
So from what I can hear, which is not all that much.
Hold on one second. Pauline, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm trying my best to hear what is happening, but I think Mitch was referring maybe potentially to Kendra's law, where the police can potentially have someone go into treatment against their will. But typically the threshold for that is very, 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 very high. And so there are some resources available through the city. If the person is homeless, homeless services can go out with a licensed clinician to assess the mental health of a person if you're seeing them. Obviously, the gentleman was assaulted, so 911 should have responded. So PD also has a co-response team that works really closely with mental health professionals as well to eliminate people going into the criminal justice system, you know, only for potentially just having a mental illness or suffering through crisis. But again, if someone's assaulted, that rises to a level of a crime. So, you know, there's lots of complication when it comes to providing people in need with services, because they do to a certain extent need to voluntarily accept services. But when someone is in crisis, it's difficult for them to want to volunteer and accept services. So this is where, you know, if you know of a particular person in a location that you see frequently, it's something that you should report to 311, to homeless services, where they can send out a team to engage that person prior to it becoming an escalated situation. You can also call Thrive through 311. You can be connected to Thrive NYC, where you can request a mental health, maybe a crisis unit to come out, or another one of the other units like co-response to come out with PD if there is a situation that's escalating to a point where it could potentially become dangerous for the person themselves or others around them. So, but again, it really does come down to letting people know that there is an individual of concern, hopefully getting in contact with them prior to it escalating to a situation where someone is being assaulted.
Thanks, Pauline. You're always good. Thank you. And I'm sorry, so introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Chris. I'm here for another topic, but I dedicated my entire thesis in college to curing homelessness and what.
Can you close to the microphone, please?
Of those chronically homeless, only 10% usually have a mental illness. And the cost every time someone who has a mental health problem that is homeless entering the hospital or entering our prison system is roughly $92,000 for each time. So what certain cities did, like Denver, they have a great program, is they created it's not a psych ward, but it's not jail, literally houses of keys for these individuals with nurses that per person came out to be about a tenth of the cost per year than they were had they been on the streets. And they've technically actually solved the issue. But I don't know if that's something that will ever be feasible in New York. It's just.
Why do you think it wouldn't be?
That sounds like a great idea.
That's Denver.
Solve homelessness in Denver? Like, what year was it?
The mental, not solve
Okay.
homelessness, solve the problem of having those who are chronically homeless as well as have mental issues. It's only 10% of the homeless population in general. 90% are usually those who've lost a home to a fire or lost a job and had to get back on their feet. It's only a small amount of homeless people that are actually that are chronically homeless and mentally ill. So they literally gave them keys. Some of them ended up having jobs and assimilating in society, which just is a benefit to society and also saves costs. But I'll never forget the number. Every time someone, this is in DC, this is cost, where I was doing this, lobbying Fenty like crazy to do something. But every time a homeless person in DC entered the hospital system, it cost taxpayers $92,000 on average between the nights in the hospital, the sutures, the surgery sometimes, the assault to others, and we tried to make a business case for it because in Denver, I believe it was like something like $18,000 a year per person to have them just taken care of. I can pull up the data. This was also in 2007. So, But it was eye-opening to me, I never known it. You said that's helpful.
The night you said you only found 10% of homeless, was that, I'm sorry, I didn't.
Of all the homeless,
In New York or somewhere else?
this is in DC.
Okay, because just, without doing study, just by living and walking around for the last 6-7 decades, it seems that there's a lot more than 10% of people, homeless people on the street that, whether they categorize mental issues or substance abuse or other types of issues, whether they categorize that as mental issues or not, I'm not sure, but it seems like a lot more than 10% of the people that you see.
Well, you're only seeing the 10%, that's the thing. The other 90% aren't necessarily on the street for the most part. They're finding the shelters, they're finding the resources, and they're pulling themselves out of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 100% of the 10% I'm saying.
I don't know.
Okay.
Well, what is that? Do you have any kind of data on that?
I wish I did. I spent the last couple of days ever since I learned about this opportunity to come and chat with you guys, trying to see what we compile, what we keep, what we store, what we collect at the hospital, and I didn't have a great deal of luck. I think that in itself is
telling.
Right. And that's not to say that it's nowhere, and that these 3 days and the fruitless search is I've exhausted everything, but I wish I did, because it is one essential piece of this puzzle, because we're all seeing all of this from our vantage points, and it's limited.
I just want to add, I gave Zach an impossible assignment.
We see it,
I want to come here and then present all the numbers. Because without numbers, it's all anecdotal.
Right.
And then Zach did a little digging and said there are no numbers. So that's step one. Everybody's saying that we have a problem, right? I'm complaining there's a problem. I don't have the numbers. Hospital doesn't have the numbers. But everybody's complaining and saying, well, then let's get the numbers. And perhaps that would be the first step.
So I think that's
I would imagine both things are true about New York, though, particularly now, because we did have the closure of a lot of the mental health facilities. And then during COVID, we have spikes, not just among homeless people, but among people in general, in drug use and in depression and anxiety, so mental health issues, compounding all of that. So I would imagine that it's very true what you're saying, but it seems like there's a lot more, but that also that was a very real statistic, COVID notwithstanding,
Did they count, like, for the people with the substance abuse problems, they count that with the people with mental issues also? Okay. Well, I feel that, from my experience, that it's a little higher.
Justine?
Anyway.
Thanks a lot. Jimmy, I heard nothing of what you said at the very beginning, but I'm gathering pieces. And so first I just want to say I'm sorry that happened to you, and I'm sorry that happened to the other two people that this person attacked. So that said first, but I'm so glad to hear that there's a discussion also about how to help these people. I think, Mariama, you touched on something. Just like COVID has totally freaked out everybody, it doesn't not affect the homeless people too. I mean, they were on the streets, they had no place to go. They could have gone into shelters, but they were at risk of getting COVID from the shelters. And if they stayed outside, the services just weren't there, and there was no people outside to get money from. So anybody they would go to for help.
June 2020 is when the mayoral budget came out, and he withdrew funds from the police budget that helped with the homeless. So that's another layer.
And that's another layer of it. And so these people, I think, are also stretched to the limit. Now, that does not in any way, shape, or form excuse attacking somebody, assaulting anybody, and that those people do not need to be on the street, but they need help. Because as Jimmy said, he fully expects to see the guy on the street in the next few days. That is the flaw in the system. And I do not know your name. The lovely woman who came up with the gray jacket and played that. Yes, I don't know. I couldn't hear your name, but you had an interesting thought. And I think that's a really important thing, that maybe this community board sit down with you and get some information and then put you in touch with people like Pauline and whatever. How can we help facilitate bringing new, fresh ideas that have worked in someplace else and bringing it to New York? Because yes, the New York scale is so large, but.
And we're about to have a new mayor.
Yeah,
think
Justine,
that
you bring up a really
sure.
great point. And also, I'm sorry, I didn't catch that lady's name either. I apologize. But, you know, bringing up the concept of an alternate sort of option than jailing someone or sending them to the hospital for mental crisis or behavioral health issues. And so actually New York so the health department did partner with the NYPD and a nonprofit organization called Project Renewal to create a connection and support center up in East Harlem, where its individuals are referred to this location where someone can stabilize for a few hours or up to 10 days max. But during that time, they will be undergoing detox, medical evaluation, and connected with support and services to help them along in treatment if that's what they desire. And this program is, the folks can only be referred to this center by the NYPD. So NYPD will respond to a situation, and instead of throwing that person into jail, they will ask if this individual would like to go to the support and connection center to receive some medical assistance and then to get connected with services. So there are some things that we really think are innovative and will be helpful. They were a little delayed in opening due to COVID, and I believe they had limited capacity, but I'm more than happy to reach out to Project Renewal just to see sort of how things are going and whether or not this is something that could be replicated throughout the city, particularly in more communities where you are seeing you know, this need. I don't know whether or not CB1 is, you know, at a place where you think a support and connection center could be housed in your district, and if it's something that, you know, can actually, you know, be. But it's interesting for discussion, I think.
Yeah. Can I throw out two things? First of all, that sounds cool. Pat, if I just might, I just have two things to follow up with. Number one, 10 days doesn't sound like it's long enough. But number two, I would love to have, maybe Pat, you would consider having at one of our next meetings soon, having Pauline come back with information from this Project Renewal, but also inviting some clients who've gone through the program, because I would like to hear from both sides of it. What I have found post-COVID, kind of, Mariama, you've been with me on the street, Taylor's been with me on the street. We've spoken to homeless people. I actually went on a walk with a police walk, and I met a homeless person who's living on Fulton Street, who had a very interesting information that I had no idea about, and a very different perspective than what is presented by the agencies. I don't know what else to call them, and reasons why that they made the choices that they make. And this person, I don't think was mentally ill. I think this person, well, I shouldn't say that. This person's not violent. I don't know what their issues are or whatever else, but clearly, where am I going with this? I would like to hear from both sides. And so I think no meeting would be complete. We only have one. We need both or three people, you know, you as a mediator.
Yeah,
and then,
All right,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
anyway, I should continue this topic in September.
Just one suggestion for December is if you could pull data that shows how much it costs on average when someone's admitted as homeless, as well as data on how much that program costs, and make the business case, I think it also helps.
Did you hear that,
that's a really
Pauline?
important point. Yeah, she wants to compare the costs between, I'm repeating it because it's easier. It's harder to hear you, but I think Pauline can hear me. So tell me if I'm saying it wrong. But I think what the lovely lady said was compare the costs between what it costs to, I don't think she said incarcerate, but put this program in place versus what it would take to just house them versus what it would take to put them through the police system, right? I mean, all the different options, what are the costs associated with it? And then look to
Also,
see what would be best.
Pauline, in that Thrive program that you told us to call 311, I'd be,
yeah, anyone who is witnessing someone who is potentially homeless or may be going through a mental health crisis, can call 311. Of course, this is a judgment call. So if you feel like it can potentially escalate to something a little bit more violent where the police will need to be called, you will definitely just call 911, but also ask the precinct to see if they can get co-response to the location, because NYPD and co-response work very closely. It's actually a team of NYPD officers and a team of clinicians that respond to volatile situations where the person will probably need to have some type of mental health service, but they don't want that person to be incarcerated or put through the system. So it's a way to get that person the mental health that they need at that time. But if you've already been in a situation where you've been attacked, then 911 is the only option to call.
No, but I meant I'd be interested, at first it's Rosa, then Mitch. I'd be interested in having them, if either we can reach out or you can reach out to Thrive and have them come and discuss in September with us. So
Sure.
why don't let's move this topic along, because we need to get on to the next thing. But let's put this on our agenda for September. In the meantime, Rosa and then Mitch, and we'll move on after that, okay?
So just in answer to Jimmy's question about data, I know that the NYPD collects a lot of data based on assaults and all of that stuff, and they actually have to report on it on a monthly basis. I believe it's called CompStat. Yeah, but then New York City also collects a crazy amount of data on a variety of things, and there's actually a whole division of data geeks that collects information from everywhere. And it's really hard to compile, but I've actually spoken with somebody there because I needed data on something. So I can try to find that contact and send that to you or whoever wants it. Because they are very, very helpful, and yes, and you need somebody who knows how to who knows how to navigate the data stream, because there's just so much out there, it's impossible to just jump in and try to find what you want. But the data is absolutely there. You just have to dig really hard for it. Because the city records absolutely everything.
But apparently this administration changed the criteria for certain crimes that skews the data to make certain statistics look lower for them to look better. So, you got to take it with a grain of salt.
Right. The other thing I was going to say is in terms of cost comparison, I remember, I think you're reading various candidates for elected office were tossing around the cost of incarceration per person on an annual basis is just under $400,000. I feel like it was around $380,000 annually per person, which is sort of crazy. And I remember that they were using as a comparison the option of something that might be more of a not a shelter-based system, but like a safe harbor kind of system at around $80,000 in New York City for certain services. But I can't remember the actual agency that they got that $80,000. I feel like it was like Fountain something, versus Rikers.
Right.
So, yes, the data is absolutely out there. There's absolutely, Chris, as you said, a business case. For, we literally can't afford to keep incarcerating people. It's cheaper to treat people with mental health issues and substance abuse issues medically and with respect and compassion than it is to just throw them in jail.
Right.
Even if you have no compassion, then appeal to the wallet and say, hey, it's costing you way more to do this. And you do both arguments, but it's to the benefit of our society to address it.
Exactly.
And then I would say to the last comment about the shelter system, I mean, obviously, we are all aware that there is 105 Washington.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up.
on our radar, and so that is a different kind of system where they're talking about having services available to people who come in. But
and I've heard horrific things from our community members.
You've heard what?
Horrific things from our community members about this potential shelter that it's going to be coming in the next 3 years. And I feel embarrassed when I look and read some of the comments that some of our community members have made.
Well, people are concerned about that one because it's more transient. And, you know, maybe there's just more education and conversations that need to be had, but because people are not gonna necessarily be tracked and traced and kept track of, you come and go as you please, or you don't come and go as you please, that's what,
I mean, it's not quite as
there's a
casual
concern
as that.
for a lot of that, because they are people, who are using substances and things like that.
But it's not quite as casual as that, and it's across the street from a police facility, which is also.
Hopefully that will help.
Oh, Zach, are you going?
Yeah, he's gotta go.
Thank you, that's fine, will you come back in September?
I hope so, yeah.
Thank you, you're welcome
Thank you.
to come whenever you want, not just about that topic,
No,
about the topic.
Hey, real quick, while I was low, I just gotta remind everybody, Zach, thank you so much, I'll see you later.
Thank you.
Guys, we all have to wear masks inside this room, that's
Please.
CCAP policy,
Please.
CC1 policy, so
Please.
we're gonna
Mark.
ask everybody to mask up.
No,
Unless you're
Why would
speaking,
you
if you're
talk that way?
speaking,
oh, when you're
please
talking,
take your mask
yeah.
off, but
Yeah.
otherwise, please
Yeah.
put it on.
Yeah, everybody. So we're gonna, this is gonna be the last, and then we have to move on to the next topic.
That first, I couldn't agree more with what you said, and what I find that the problem, I think we'll realize it is for the people that refuse the treatment, and that's what I just picked up, it was in the 80s, her name was Joyce Patricia Brown, but it was known as the Billy Boggs case.
Isn't that what Pauline said?
And Mayor
Kendrick.
Mayor, this was before that. Mayor Koch, her case had a legal precedent for forced psychiatric care, which has hamstrung involuntary, commitments to the homeless in New York and elsewhere after that. And the Mayor Koch had started a new program to remove mentally disturbed homeless people that were a danger to others and themselves, like really, like egregious, not like a low threshold, to get help. And then she was the first homeless person to be to fight that with, I guess, the lawyers. And what happened was she was living next to an ice cream shop on 65th Street on one of those grates for about a year. And after, over the year, exposing herself to passersby, I remember this, it was like in my, I was reading the paper, urinating and putting feces on herself, running into traffic, and assaulting people with feces and stuff like that. And somebody that is an exact example of somebody that needs the help that Rose was talking about, and they changed the law because she had some good lawyers, or some lawyers used her, and we don't want them taking somebody off to Devil's Island, obviously.
Right.
But somewhere in the middle, there are some people that need help.
For their own protection.
That refusing, so, there's the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, Third, whatever, whichever amendment it applies to, not the Second Amendment, but there has to be some type of common sense where if somebody is throwing feces at you or running into traffic, they need help, and they're not, it's like somebody that has dementia or Alzheimer's, they cannot be legally in control of their own decisions, where they need a conservatorship. So there has to be something in the middle where, because it can't just be the black and white, well, we just can't take them against their will because mentally they're not able to make the decision. The threshold should be high, so things don't happen what happened like in Bellevue when Geraldo Rivera was a good reporter 50 years ago.
Right. Before Al Capone.
Right. Before Fox News. But the thing is that what he was known for when he came up as being a good street investigative reporter, we don't want to go back to that psychiatry stuff. That was cool.
And Creedmoor.
But there has to be something so that people can get the help that Rosa was talking about.
Yeah.
Even
We agree with
against their will in the beginning.
Yeah. All right, so I just wrote down, we'll put it on the agenda. Pauline, you're gonna help us, thank you. Right? So between Thrive and the other agency, Project Renewal, and we'll also have, hopefully one of our officers from the first precinct will be here, and Jimmy, and hopefully Zach, and Chris, please come back, okay? So now, let's move on, but we're gonna move on to what Chris really is here for, which is Mark and WeWork. So Mark, tell us what the situation is.
Let me give you a brief history. Everyone knows who WeWork is. So they have a location in my neck of the woods. I'm not going to give them an exact address in public, let's just say I'm nearby. It's 53 Beach Street, which is between Greenwich and Hudson, and more specifically between Greenwich and Collister Street, which is that little alley. So the history, if you remember, some years back, they bought the building, or leased it, I think, where the Montessori school used to be there, and used to be a horticulture place there. So they went through this major renovation, construction projects, and there were numerous violations. They were doing, illegal work at night. They put in the handicap ramp without landmark approval. They had cranes without permits, and this was after the Word Street thing. I spoke to a couple of guys there, and they said they didn't care. This is before your time.
About that today. I thought we were talking about the event today.
No, I'm giving the history. I'm giving the history of the site, so it puts in perspective that what happened a couple of weeks ago was not a one-time thing. So they didn't care if they were getting fined, because they said WeWork was reimbursing them. So all this is documented. It was community board, committee meetings, emails, video, all this stuff. 2019, they had a similar party, but not as egregious as the one that was a couple of weeks ago. And video of that, drunken people puking on the street, loud, 1 o'clock in the morning, and of course, no liquor license.
Mm-hmm.
We were told at that time that it'll never happen again. We didn't know the client, blah, blah, yada, yada. They did at one time come to apply for a liquor license, but it was discovered by some other board members that they give away free beer at some of their facilities, and there was some sexual assault at some other locations. This was brought up. I didn't know about it. Other people brought it up. And so they since then withdrew their application for a liquor license. So now we come to recent history. So there was like a little bit of good news. Like we were getting a good rapport with them when they said, all right, this is not going to happen again. And then they had a contractor who would pick up the trash at like 2 in the morning, but Beach Street goes westbound, but the truck would come down Greenwich and then back up Beach Street 300 feet, beep, 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 beep,
Yeah.
thing like that. And they eventually contacted the vendor, and it stopped. So it looked like we were kind of making a little bit of headway here. And then virus happened, so there's this little lull kind of thing. But for some reason, they really have any activity in there. But for the last year, they've been having cleaning crews come in and putting trash out on the sidewalk. But the trash would be there for 4, 5, 6 days. And Lucian, I think you were on the email chain, so trash is out there again 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, 4 days. What's going on? This is maybe 10 times. So, but there was response to it. There was actual, we're looking into it, we're sorry, so it wasn't ignored, but they weren't fixing it at the same time. But at least there was a dialogue. So we always like that's good for us, at least someone's trying, they're not ignoring us or being, this kind of thing. So then we come to June 24th, the night of June 24th. There are a few people in there, look like they're setting something up, and then they start having a party. It goes to 1 o'clock in the morning. They're in there drinking, they're out on the balcony, the loading dock drinking, the smoking marijuana. The marijuana smoke goes up to our building. There's children that live in our building. It's a whole other situation. You can say what you want about whether it's legal, not legal, but it starts blowing into the windows where children are sleeping. That's another whole issue. And where Collister Street, you have the Citibank building, you have Collister Street. It acts like a wind tunnel there. It's 10 times windy no matter when it's sitting there, if it's windy anywhere else. So they were kind of a little belligerent when I went over to them and asked them to please stop. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. You actually can you actually drink here? All that stuff. So I videotaped it just like everything else you're supposed to do these days and I was on the sidewalk, so I was in a public area. Because then no one believes you. So.
Do you have your slides?
Yeah, we have the videos of everything.
Tell them about the street closure.
All right. So then this is in preparation for the next day. So when I reported this to the WeWork contact app, I kind of got a snarky email back, stop harassing our customers and don't videotape them. So it was kind of like that. So I was like, all right, the niceties have ended. So then Friday, the next day, June 25th, this party starts developing around 5 o'clock. Uber cars are showing up, stopping, blocking the street. There are hundreds of people on the street, inside, outside. They set up a barbecue on Collister Street, closed Collister Street. One of my neighbors, and some of them couldn't come tonight, well, they didn't want to because they didn't want to be in like an indoor thing. A woman that was around the corner with her dog, someone who claimed to be security told you can't walk down the street because it's closed for a private party. So no permits for this, nothing, hundreds of people pouring out on the street. It's getting more and more loud and rowdy as the night goes on. Police are called, they arrive, they're not sure what to do. They try and contact someone in the building, and the two cops was like, we got to call backup. So about 3 cars came up, and Captain Smith showed up. That's how egregious this was, when the captain of the precinct shows up with something like this. They try to break it up. No one's listening. They're drunk. They're on the street. They were jumping on one of the neighbors' cars, one of those brand new Porsche SUVs. He had to come out and move it when he was with his kids. Someone at some point goes to their car and comes out with a megaphone. Cops go home. We're allowed to party. This kind of thing. And it took them over like an hour and a half to clear everybody out of there. They finally confront the 2 ringleaders who were organizing this and asked them for documentation about, do you have a permit to serve liquor? And then they closed the door right away, and they almost arrested one of them because he wouldn't show ID. He was being very nasty with them, and of course they didn't have any documentation. So I think, because this is like the second egregious offense, that we spoke about this in the licensing committee last night as well, that this needs to be reported officially to the state liquor authority. So if they ever do apply for a 1-day permit or OP license or beer and wine license,
I'm sorry.
that it's on the record with.
Did you ever find out, had they applied for a 1-day license?
For a liquor license?
For that June 25th?
Yeah.
I don't have.
I know Jen looked into it. She said as far as she knows, no, but they're going to get back to her. But there's definitely no permit for.
This was WeWork for?
WeWork, yeah. Yeah, there's definitely no liquor license there.
Can we move over to Chris?
Yeah, just to see if I got everything in. And usually, like, the neighbors on the street know I'm a community board, so they call me, they have a magic wand, I can fix everything. So it's that kind of thing. So, you know, like I said, there were some good parts, little ebbs and flows here where we had some good relationships, but overall, the history since they've been there has been a bad one.
All right, so now, Chris, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Chris. I lead public affairs at WeWork. I only started in January, so my 6-month mark is actually Monday. Excuse me, dry throat, not COVID. I'm sorry to hear that account. That's not what I was told by my people, a few things I've never heard before. I will say that in 2019, we had a different CEO. We had a new CEO start almost right before 2020, who is wonderful, I will say, was turning the business around, which is why hopefully you're seeing some positive news about WeWork. I was brought on to lead our impact work, our corporate social responsibility work, and really be more of a liaison in our different communities as best that I can with my team. So if there's anything I can say, I'm here now, and I want to be a partner in all of this. We have our legal team who deals with legal stuff. We have our events team who just does the events, but there's never been sort of a public affairs team to be here, right? So I'm here now, and I'm sorry for your experience that we were through the past. I can't speak to it. I wasn't there.
You said you were told other things. What were you told that?
So we were told that I only heard one June 25th. Didn't hear anything about June 24th. I heard about June 25th. There was an indoor event. It was our community manager who was at the event. Didn't expect. We were told 75 people would be there. She said 90 showed up by her clock. I let you finish. 90 showed up by her count, and they started spilling outside to smoke. She said cigarettes. And then they all started spilling outside. She tried to get them to come in, and they just wouldn't come in. And that's when the cops came to try and get them to leave. don't know, we no longer serve beer at any of our locations. We took that out globally. There's no more beers on tap anywhere, nor will there ever be again. It's not that kind of a business anymore. With the old CEO left a lot of old ways. But she did say that she couldn't control about 40 people from being outside. She tried to get them to leave. There was just one of her, she was told, the event by the member who hosted it was told to us it'd be an art exhibit. So that's what she was expecting we were expecting more of a refined crowd, if you will.
So what happens to that member?
They will no longer be able to access the space. They have lost their ability to access the space. We relinquished their right to throw a party, nothing like that. That location has been closed operationally for the last year. There's been no one in there other than 2 or 3 people going into work from the corporate team. We do not know when it might reopen. If it does, it will be sold as an office space. It will not be an event space. We have one event space moving forward in New York, and it's in Flatiron, and that's fully permitted with a bar and bartender. It's called the Creator House on 21st Street. Our other locations, should there be events, if there will be events, they'll be more in line, if you will. When an event is thrown moving forward, I'm now going to be involved for New York. Tri-State is mine. I'm not legal and I'm not events. I'm here to let you guys know and hopefully build a relationship moving forward. And I wish I had more to say.
Well, hold on a second. Show the pictures.
I emailed.
I have a video. I saw the video. I have the video.
But we haven't. Everybody hasn't seen it. You have it? Are we able to look at that?
So if you want to show those now.
Yeah.
But for her to say that there was only 90 people there is really.
And from my look, it looks like about 100.
Yeah.
So I only saw one video.
Well, let's let the committee.
All right, so there's several videos here. Unfortunately, the most egregious one is on this throwaway phone I bought.
But the one I saw.
But I can't transfer it to. It won't transfer.
Why don't you show it to her now?
If you want to see it, all right.
Well,
It's like 3.
Well, hold on a second.
Mark, I have
Go ahead, Luke.
5 videos. Which one would you want to show?
Well, you want to show? Why don't you show the one that says with the barbecue on Collister Street first?
I don't understand the cops. Just because they close. Okay, hold on. Let me just move this up. Then I have to make sure that people can see it online. So give me 1 second.
And it's a surveillance video there too at the building, which you can probably access. That's not the barbecue one, but you can stay with it.
So, because nobody here has seen.
Yeah.
There's music outside.
Well, one of the patrons in this car on the right was blasting music and didn't give a damn about anything. Yeah, he was inside, he came out, he was going in and out, that convertible there.
So the music from the car?
Yeah. There was also music inside too. This is probably around, 10, 11, around now, yeah.
What night of the week was this?
This is Friday. Yeah, they closed Collister Street. Walking north on Collister. Something out of focus. There was someone there that said the street was closed. Look inside. I see more inside when I walk back. So there's no permit for this at all.
But there would be a permit for it.
They would need a permit to
Well, you can
close
have a
the
block
street.
party, but you gotta get a commercial.
Yeah, you need a permit, yeah.
But for a block party, you also have to have, like, you have to alert all the neighbors that it's going on.
They just went and just set this up.
There's food outside?
And a grill.
The cops couldn't close that down?
They closed this up, by the time the cops got there, this was closed up. Yeah, so.
All right, well,
Yeah.
everybody's seen it now. So,
Well, keep
number
going, because, you want to see inside the building.
Well, we saw it when you were going the
Well,
other
here's a little more.
Is this the street that we wanted to put streetlights on?
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you very much, yes, thank you for reminding me of that, which was a lot of resistance to, which we need.
It looks like it would be very dark.
Yeah,
Your
so-
neighbors resist the streetlights?
No, no, they were here, they were in favor of it.
Maybe you can bring it up again.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on with the conversation.
So, there's there's more I mean, that was earlier in the evening, and then there were just more and more and more people showing up. What else do I have?
Well, I saw the one where the car pulled up.
You have some of the
people got
NYPD.
out.
Yeah,
And no one was arrested?
They almost arrested the ringleader. Yeah, maybe that was it. I don't remember.
Well, I don't know that we need to see more. We've seen, we know that.
I mean, you want to see where the
there.
police are there too, I assume, right?
But let's just talk to Chris. So Chris, now, you've seen it. That's the member who had this event is no longer part of
We will not be able to access the location or any of the location again.
And have you kind of announced to your other members that this event happened and this will not be tolerated?
Well, members have to submit for an event request no matter what. So they did, and they were approved, but the event request they submitted was different than what ended up happening, clearly. I don't know how our own community member didn't file a police, to be honest. One thing we can do is instruct our community members, so community members, when you go to a New York person at the front, we can train them better on if this happens, call us. Like, don't worry about the member, don't worry, just call the police ourselves.
No, I just think, like, there must have been somebody from WeWorks, like, in a boss position that has to be on site there to have.
We can make that happen, and
Right.
that will be, as of right now, we don't.
Oh,
We
really?
require the 2 or 3 community members to usually stay overtime and get paid extra hours to manage the event. I mean, there are events worldwide all the time, and this doesn't, I'll just say, like, this doesn't happen.
But this is the second time this has happened in 2 years.
I just started to
So,
get.
I know, I understand it, but we have it, it's all
If I had been
documented.
here last time, I would not allow
It
this
is all
to happen again.
documented, so.
Let Diane.
But,
You know, like, sometimes, like, we ask that, like, construction sites have some kind of number, like a 24/7 number, like, could we have like a number to call that?
In real time, though, not a recording, but somebody who could respond to the neighbors.
yeah, I mean, I had all the emails, but it didn't.
It can be me, I can.
So she's filling the.
Yeah. It can be me.
Well, first of all,
myself.
first of all, since Mark is.
First of all, new events moving forward in New York now, I'm involved. So public affairs is now, other than just 2 functions being involved in having events, my function is now part of the process.
Okay.
But Chris, let me just suggest that you have a number, not your own personal number,
Yeah.
that you give that can be connected to your number when you know an event is happening on a particular night, so that in case it's something that you were not expecting and it's out of control and the neighbors need to contact someone, that they can call that number and get through to a real person, not a recording.
Agree, and I also think we should have our own kind of security team on
Yes.
events or party, events that are expected to be larger than 30 people.
Right.
So our security could have gotten them out of there and not.
The thing is, when somebody actually applies for a 24-hour license from the SLA, part of the application is that you are going to have security at your event.
I mean, I'm going up to Boston on Wednesday.
But when you don't apply, you don't need security.
I must have counted, at least like maybe 30 or 40 Ubers that would stop and block traffic and,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
I mean, this is.
I haven't seen it.
This yet. This is,
What if they needed like a fire or ambulance, you know?
oh, that was a problem, man. That was a problem, man. This is about 2.5.
Aside from the fact that people are trying to sleep.
This video is about 2.5.
And it's a pandemic, so it's like.
Yes, exactly.
No mask.
We're trying to not see that happening anymore. Like that's.
So the thing is that, you know, it's all, like the person that was predecessor to you like a couple years ago was like, this is never gonna happen again, so.
This position is brand new.
So we have to, make sure that, you know, you hear the cops yelling in a little, yeah, look at that, that's not 90 people.
No, I mean, that video. is not
Yeah,
90
yeah,
people.
so.
It's like, the 90 people thing out the window.
Yeah, I saw that one, you showed me that one, I think.
And Captain Smith's in this video. No.
Captain Smith is making the rounds, he was with you, he's with Mark.
He's doing his work.
Yeah, at least he's doing his job. Okay,
So you
so,
see what's happening here?
all right, Mark, so we
Alright.
gotta move on, because that clock is wrong, it's actually 8:45.
Alright,
And,
so,
Chris.
so the people that I had on the email chain with, you know all of them? You saw those?
I saw the chain with a cat, and I only saw the chain of what I emailed Lucian.
All right, so I can forward those to you, so.
Yeah, I know who told me that.
Was it Leah, I think it was the person I was dealing with?
again,
So,
I know who told me there was only 90 people there, and I very much intend to have a conversation
Yeah.
with her.
No.
But I won't have
Yeah,
to.
please have a conversation with them. And there has to be some other way to vet your members, because if that member said that we're only gonna have like 40 people, and then they end up having, even if it was not their fault, you know how a kid goes to a party when their parents are not home, and they have, you know, a class, you know, and it ends up.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I think first we need to have more than just our community folks at any event moving forward, at least for like a year, I'd say. Whether it's myself or someone else on my team or someone on our operations team. Second, even if we're not required a permit, I think we need security just on site generally. It's like not much of a cost and will go a long way. Third, I will be notified of every single event that might take place in New York City. And I will, even if it's a small event, if you guys just want the transparency, I'm more than happy to shoot it over, just in case, even if it's not in Tribeca. There's nothing planned for that location, as far as I know, in the future period. If that changes, I'll let you know. I know this is not the first event, but for somewhere I'm here, and I'm.
No, I understand, but there's been a you know, a history of this, but also a history of someone showing up from WeWork. I just got here. It's happened a few times already.
I know.
But the history is the history of your company, and
Well, I'm from New York, I'm born and raised, I'm back here to help our public affairs, Staten Island at least.
And the thing is, you know, the thing also is that, you know, even if you have an event, you can't have the alcohol.
Shut up, Bronx.
You can't have alcohol. Yeah.
They brought it themselves.
Even with that, even if it's not, even if it's not for
That
sale,
was not expected.
even if it's not for sale.
We were told
There
this
was
is an art exhibit.
tons of it, yeah.
They BYO'd, like, I swear. We have dealt with a member, I wish I could tell you who they were, because like.
I have their photo, I have them down, is there a thing that says two ringleaders? I can send it to you.
They've lost their memberships, like they're out.
Okay.
And I promise you, if it happens again, like, I will show up and make it.
Well, now you're on record.
I'm on record.
And at first, when they were talking to Captain Smith, they first said to them, he said to them, well, yeah, I'm a WeWork employee. Then he changed his tune when they wanted more information. Well, where's the documentation for the liquor? And then he said, no, we're not really. And then, you know, so.
We gotta move on.
I'll write up the bullets I just said and send them over to you, Lucian.
Do you have a business card with you?
I don't have one yet because COVID ain't doing
Okay, so Chris, the main thing is to get us a public number so that, you know, and then I would suggest, as we ask a lot of entities, if you're going to have a gathering, you know, even if it's 40 people, I think that you should let the surrounding buildings know, you know, post it or something. So
That's a basically quiet residential.
Yeah,
It's
so
a quiet
people kind of
residential.
know, like we, you know.
And not let them close down the street.
Well, they shouldn't.
I can't believe that happened.
Well, yeah, that's totally illegal. Putting food out.
I literally was hired to build a relationship with community.
You have a tough road to climb because of the history. I mean.
First of all, thank you for showing up and taking responsibility, and then thank you for also participating in our discussion earlier about, you know, homeless and mental illness. So, that aside, come in September when we're going to continue that conversation.
And if our space could ever be used for meetings or an event that you'd like to, that's complimentary, like, just let us know.
Let us know. I don't know if we can accept it. Thank you, Claire.
Lucy, you have a piece of paper?
So, Pauline, you still here?
Thanks. Oh, here we go, I gotta post it.
I'm still here.
So I don't know what we're gonna do about your topic, Pauline. Do you want to?
That was a horrible night.
We're moving on, guys. Pauline, do you want to just give us a quick overview of the Delta variant?
Or would you,
Sure, I can, if you don't mind, I'll just give a quick overview of what's happening in the city in terms of our vaccine status. So as of this morning, 4,418,050 New Yorkers are considered fully vaccinated, which is about 53% of New York City's population, which is okay. It's not a great number, but you know, we're trying our best to get those numbers moving up. And I think it's really important that people know that cases are increasing throughout the city, and a majority of the cases being tested, around 40%, are of this Delta variant. And we just came out with a study that shows very clearly that vaccinations help. So so between January 1st, 2021 and June 15, 2021, 98.4% of hospitalizations and 98.8% of deaths from COVID-19 infection were in those who were not vaccinated. So I really want to emphasize that point, that we have actual data to show that vaccines prevent hospitalization and death. So I really wanted to just underscore that point. So with regards to the Delta variant, as we all know, it is much more transmissible than the original strain of COVID, meaning that, again, if you are not vaccinated, there is a higher likelihood of you getting COVID-19 with the Delta variant, and there is a higher chance of you getting sicker and potentially having to be hospitalized. And so we just really want to make sure people understand this information, and hope that that drives people towards getting a vaccine if they haven't yet. There isn't very much to be said about variants. So, you know, variants happen when a virus is transmitted between person to person. It's just naturally occurring because viruses, it's their goal, right, to go and spread. And when it has the opportunity to spread among various people, there is that opportunity for it to mutate. So there's nothing in particular about the Delta variant that we should be concerned about. It's just that it's shown to be a little bit more transmissible, but it is naturally occurring among viruses for them to just mutate into different variants. It has been shown that the existing vaccines are effective against the Delta variant, so that is good news. And whether or not we're going to, in the future, need to get booster shots or have different types of COVID-19 shots, like the flu shot is different every year, that's still to be determined. So this is all of the information that I have as of today, and I'm happy to answer any questions that people may have.
Well, Pauline, I had also heard that this variant is young people are more susceptible to this. Is that correct, or?
I mean, you don't know for certain, because also take into effect that young people have not either had the opportunity to get the vaccine, you know, anyone younger than the age of 12 is not eligible, or the fact that there are some age groups, particularly the age group between 18 and 34, who have decided not to get vaccinated. And so is it a matter of it being more transmissible with younger people, or is it because younger people are not getting vaccinated? Don't really know at this point, but what we do know is it is more transmissible than the original form of COVID. And so if it is anything to encourage you to go and get your vaccine, then I don't know what else would. But again, the data around, I think, the hospitalization and death numbers, I think, is very compelling. And I think that that is something that I think, you know, people need to emphasize.
Mitch had a question.
So, say somebody from another part of the world has gotten the Sinovac this year. Pauline, do you hear me?
I can hear you.
So the Sinovac, from what, I mean, is really not as good as ours. It's like 50–60% as opposed to, you know, Moderna and Pfizer, which is like 95–98%. So let's say if they were going to come here and they've already gotten the 2 doses of the Sinovac or the AstraZeneca, how long do they need to wait, like, to get, say, take a dose of the Moderna or the Pfizer, or can they do it like within a few months, or do they need to wait a certain amount of time? Or is it safe to do that?
So it is my understanding that if you've received a vaccine from another country, that you do not need to get another type.
I don't need to. I'm saying, okay, forget about another country. You've gotten the vaccine, one of the weaker vaccines, and now, you know, now you want to get the Moderna or Pfizer. If you've gotten another vaccine, is it okay to take the better vaccine after a couple of months? Let's forget about like the laws or that you don't need to because it has nothing to do with that. I'm just talking about the health reasons.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's necessary. And I think, there's a lot to take into consideration about the efficacy rates. So with regards to Moderna and Pfizer, they were created pretty early on when there weren't that many variants around. Whereas Johnson & Johnson was created a little bit later where there are a lot more COVID infection and a lot more variants. And so that potentially impacted their efficacy numbers and their rates. They're still all equally, effective, not equally effective, but they're all very effective. So I wouldn't recommend anyone who's already been vaccinated to go ahead and get additional vaccine. I don't know if that would be helpful. I'm happy to ask a doctor on our team whether or not that's advisable. But again, if you have received any of the approved vaccines across the globe, but particularly any of the 3 that have been approved in the US, it would be safe to assume that you will have the antibodies that will protect you against COVID infection.
Not when in other countries where there's been reports of hundreds of thousands of people that have gotten the Sinovac, where it's really 50 to 60%, and they're getting COVID and dying of COVID, and some of those places are now like buying doses of Moderna to try to vaccinate the healthcare workers, like the 3rd booster shot. So I know that on paper what you're saying, everything is right, but is there any medical danger to get a 3rd shot, say 3, 4, 5, 6 months after you've gotten a dose of something else? But that's what I'm trying to find out.
Yeah, I will ask. I don't know. I don't know. And I also don't know what the CDC or the FDA would recommend. So that's definitely something that we would look to our, scientists and like those in the healthcare who are like overseeing our vaccine program. So, I mean, it would be safe to say that anyone in the US who's received a vaccine should not have to worry about this. But you're right, if there are other people who maybe were living overseas and coming back to America, or for whatever reason, if they've received another vaccine, whether or not they would need a booster or a shot of a different vaccine, whether or not that would be required, I will need to find out for you. So I'm happy to do that. I will ask.
I'm sorry, many European countries are not allowing people to come there from places where they got the Sinovac and AstraZeneca, and so maybe they know something that we don't know.
I would say allowing her to talk to this doctor, and even if that doctor can just give you their professional medical opinion, that's probably the best you're going to do, because she's representing the DOH in the city, which has to defer to DOH in the state, and the CDC, and the CDC and the WHO don't even see the same on this. Like the WHO is more like so what you're saying. Stay away from Delta variant. People that have been fully vaccinated are getting sick, ending up in the hospital, dying, and the CDC is saying you don't have to wear your mask anymore. So you're not going to get the answer from a government official at the city level, particularly, that you're looking to get. But I would be appreciative of her
that would be nice.
talking to the doctor.
I'm trying to get, I need an answer outside of the bureaucracy, just strictly.
Yes. All right, we gotta move on, because it's over 9.
Talk to your doctor about it.
Jimmy wanted to ask a question.
Pauline, perhaps, Pauline or Jimmy, you're giving us this regular update, right? So perhaps next time, you'll be able to find out the answer that we want. One of the things I noticed is that that young people are the ones that are vaccine hesitant now, and then but I'm worried that now schools, universities are having policy that unless you're vaccinated, you cannot come on campus. So I think what I'm worried about is that once the fall comes, those who are not college educated, so we're gonna just like any other infectious disease, we start having demographic divides again. Perhaps next time you can let us know what effort has been made to really, really try to get the young people that are not going to college and who are not college bound, how do we protect them are there more proactive, actions are being taken on the city level? I understand the president had invited, the new Senator to, White House, which is really good. But I'm worried about that. I think that college kids, now they're forced to, it's like homework, they have to get it. But, I'm worried about the kids who are not going to college. And just anecdotally, to answer your question, because school is opening, a lot of foreign students are coming into, United States. They have been vaccinated by, other type of vaccine, and the school's requiring them to get either Pfizer or Moderna or, Johnson & Johnson. So we're probably gonna get that data soon if there's any kind of adverse
Have you
reaction.
heard, because you're a doctor, so what you just said, so have you heard, let's say, one of the foreign students is coming from wherever, Vietnam, and now they just got the Seneca vaccine or whatever, Sinovac vaccine. How many months do they need to wait?
That's not my specialty, and I don't have the data on that, but that's why I say polling can come back, because these cases are happening, the schools are forcing them to have it, so if there's some kind of adverse reaction, et cetera, we can find out.
Definitely, because all the vaccines are not created equal.
Okay, so Rose is gonna be our last question.
Oh, could
because
I-
we have to wrap. I'm sorry, Bob. Bob,
I
did you
had
have a
my hand up.
question?
Yeah, in the
I'm
last
sorry,
section I did,
Rose, can you wait a minute? Bob, go ahead.
okay,
Bob,
people around me know I'm involved with these things, and they've asked me if 53% of the population is vaccinated, but people on the street are mostly not wearing masks, does that mean there's high risk all over the place? And people are concerned that because people are mixing from all over the 5 boroughs, that they should be wearing masks. I'm under orders from my doctors that I have to wear masks 100% of the time, except when I'm home like this and in front of a screen. And so the question is, how dangerous is it for people that even are vaccinated but have exposure and kind of vulnerable conditions? How does that work for those people, and how dangerous is it actually on the street?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Bob. And I think, we really felt as though the lifting of requirements happened a little bit too quickly. I think the governor had a 70% one dose rate in his head to reopen all of New York State. And that included, numbers from upstate New York that really don't reflect New York City. We're much more condensed city. We are much more populous than other parts of New York State. And so your point exactly is that we have a lot more opportunity to be in very close contact with people who may not be vaccinated. And even if you yourself are vaccinated, it doesn't mean that you cannot get COVID. It just means that your chances of getting hospitalized or having the unfortunate situation of dying from COVID is lessened, but we still do, will be in contact with COVID, especially people who aren't vaccinated are walking around maskless. So in our opinion, there needs to be more mask wearing than what is being advised right now. So we strongly encourage people to continue wearing their face coverings when they're in a space where they are not sure whether or not the people around them are fully vaccinated. It's still required on public transportation, but again, it is definitely a concern for us. We don't want to see these numbers rising and rising again. And for New York to only be 53% fully vaccinated, meaning the full 2 doses 2 weeks out from that last dose, it's concerning to us. And I think it's really important that we continue, and to Jimmy's point, really focus on getting young people vaccinated. So, there's so much talk about how COVID doesn't affect young people and young people recover so much faster. And this is why it's sort of in the psyche of like younger folks that they don't need the vaccine. And this is something that we need to continuously overcome, which is, yes, potentially you might be able to overcome COVID on your own better than someone with underlying health conditions, better than an elderly person. But you are still, as a member of society, still responsible for doing something that will be beneficial to everyone around you. And so getting a vaccine is not going to hurt you. It'll help you, it'll prevent disease, but it'll also help prevent spreading of disease, because when you're asymptomatic, you're not coughing, you're not sneezing, you're not doing all of these things that spread disease further, but also you are protecting those around you. So this is definitely something that we are very, very, very actively working on, getting younger people the right information so that they will go and get vaccinated.
Pauline, hate to interrupt you. We gotta wrap, but
No
Rosa
problem.
has the last question.
One tiny extra question. Does the city have a number for herd immunity, or are we working towards something called herd immunity? So when if we hit 73% or something, then we consider that we've conquered this or something?
Yeah, I mean, I think the general statistic that everybody in like the immunization world uses as quote unquote herd immunity would be over 70% of the population having received the vaccine. So that's sort of like the standard number. That's what the governor used for the state reopening. But again, New York City is very different than the rest of New York State. So again, you know, I highly encourage everyone to continue wearing your face covering, especially if you don't know the vaccine status of those around you.
Which is most of them.
Hi.
My question is gonna be to Pauline, on the topic of younger people, the younger people, do we have any update on when we might have vaccinations for those under 12?
Yeah, so I think Pfizer just came out stating that they are wrapping up clinical trials and it might be available sometime in the winter, depending on how all of the review goes. But yeah, I believe they just stated that their timeline was pushed back a little because they were anticipating September, but now it's probably the winter.
All right. Well,
Thank you very
Pauline,
much.
you know that we love you and we thank you for always coming, whether it's, you know, about rats or whether it's about health.
We love all of the topics.
So we hope to see you in September.
Will do.
Enjoy the rest of your summer.
You mean now?
Yeah. And have a good time and stay safe.
Thank you, you too. Everyone be safe.
Thank you.
Night. Okay.
Jimmy.
Night, everybody online. Bye, everyone. We're wrapping
Good
it
night,
up.
good night, good night.
Good night, Justine, Bob.
And, you know, like, they're vaccines, you know?
Is Kimberly still on? Good night, Kimberly.
Why
And
can't this
Jetta.
be, you know, I'm just like speaking to, you know, I'm preaching to the choir, but why can't this be